I'm starting to feel a change of seasons in the air. The last few days there's been a chill I haven't felt in months, and the days are also getting shorter. As much as I love fall, I feel like it's harder for me every year to say goodbye to the summer garden. Things have started to die back, and I always get sad to leave the hot, sunny days behind. I've started the transition into fall here in the garden. This time of year is always crazy busy dealing with the summer harvest while also making sure I get more cool weather crops planted. I always try to remind myself to take a step back and admire the garden I've worked so hard on over the last year. Even though we have some time before the frost comes, I can't help but feel a sadness that summer is almost over. Good morning, guys. I have all of this really beautiful broccoli I'm going to be planting out later on this evening. I wanted to wake up this morning and at least get garden beds prepped because I think it is supposed to get pretty hot today, even though this morning was really cool. I am someone that can adjust to warm really easily, but the moment it gets to about 65, which is what this morning was, it's just a little bit too chilly for me. I walked out here and I was like, ooh, I kind of want a sweater. It's a little bit chilly. I just do not do good with anything under 65 degrees. I think it's just cold and I want to be warm. So I amended a few areas this morning, and I do need to go run to my garden center this morning because I do need one more bag of soil amendment. So the soil amendment I've been using, I want to say I started using this probably last fall when I was amending a few beds. It's just a garden soil that's been amended with kelp meal and worm castings, and I've really liked it, just especially toward the end of the year now when some of these beds have been producing a few different rounds of things. I like to top with that, and I've obviously been doing a lot of fertilizing with my fish and seaweed fertilizer this year, so just to make sure the plants get all the nutrients they need. But I did get some stuff weeded. I got the soil a little bit loose with a garden fork just to help aerate the soil a little bit. That in-ground space gets really compact versus my garden beds. They definitely don't get compact like that. So I typically have to aerate that soil a little bit. But that in-ground space is where all of this broccoli is going to be planted. This stuff looks so beautiful. I started this the last week of June. I also have some cabbage here, which I don't know if you guys remember 2 weeks ago, I believe I showed you what the cabbage was looking like, and it was just pretty much dying. So I restarted some of the cabbage. I honestly don't know if this is something that will fully produce for me or not, simply because cabbage is one of those longer crops. I also have some collards and some kale here as well, and I will be getting all of this planted out today. I need to start some lettuce seeds today. I needed to start the lettuce seeds about a week ago. And I have just been so busy with all sorts of other stuff, I have not got around to it. So this is the time of year that honestly just feels kind of crazy. I feel like I have maybe 2 or 3 weeks left of the crazy of trying to transition into fall while dealing with the abundance of summer. I will be doing a lot of direct sowing as well. I was going through my garden planning last night, making sure I could fit everything I wanted to do for fall, and I think we're going to be good. But other than that, we'll see what else I get into. I should probably stop rambling and get to running my errand real fast and catch up with you guys in just a little bit. All right, so I have all of my onions here, which I'm going to double check that they are all fully cured. They should be. We're on, I want to say we're on week 4, a little over week 4. And yes, one thing you want to see is that there is no remaining green in like this stem area. When you cut open, it should be completely dry like that. So in previous years, I have braided them, and last year I actually had some issues braiding them. So I ended up taking down the braids and I had them laid flat on one of my steel racks I have in my basement, and I really liked that because then I was able to go through and kind of feel the onions to see if any of them were getting a little bit softer, and if they were, I was using those first or turning them into onion powder. So I'm gonna do that again this year since I really liked that. So I'm gonna go through all of these onions, get them cleaned up. I'm gonna trim up the roots, trim up the necks on these, put them in this laundry basket here, and I'm going to take them downstairs. I'm not exactly sure how many I have left at this point, for the fact I've used a decent amount over the last 4 weeks. So beautiful. Yes, we are good to go. This was such a good year for onions, and I'm really excited. I need to make some onion powder really soon. I don't know if, I don't know how long this will last me again. Last year, I think we got to, I want to say we got into January, and then they all started to get a little bit soft on me. So we will kind of see how this year goes, but overall, I'm really excited. I was able to freeze dry some of these last year as well, which was nice. So I went ahead and chopped and diced a bunch. So then I already had a bunch of diced up onions, and I was just able to grab some and throw them into soups and stews, or if I was making tacos or something like that. I really liked that. And since they were already freeze dried and diced, if I ran out of onion powder, I was able to just blend it up into a, make onion powder real quick. But this one here, it looks like the skin on this one is kind of soft and weird on the one side, and this one probably won't store that well. So I'm gonna put this one off to the side, and we'll actually probably do that with the freeze dryer. Even though this year I grew some of the best onions I have ever grown, very consistent size, very good looking onions in general. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut off the tops, cut off the roots like so, and place it into my laundry basket, and I'm gonna keep going until I get all these cleaned up here. Okay, well, I'd be lying if I wasn't a little disappointed at the moment. So for the last 4 years, I have not had this problem, and I just got off my phone from Googling various things to try to figure out what could have potentially happened. So I have a little over 20 onions over here at the moment, where when I cut them open to see if they were cured, I noticed black, which I at first thought maybe was dirt, but looking at it closer, it looked more like mold. And upon looking at this further and Googling things, this is mold. So from what I found, I'm honestly probably going to butcher this a little bit. I'll put a screenshot of the one thing I saw that made me like Google this a little bit further. It seems to me like when these onions were still in the ground, I definitely had some issues with the greens breaking and getting holy from wind. I had a lot of extreme wind at the end of spring, early summer, especially when these started to bulb, which ended up causing just holes in the greens. And I didn't really think too much of it because I have dealt with wind damage before, but not on the level I dealt with it this year. And with those exposures in the greens, that can actually end up introducing the mold spores. And we had a lot of rain in the last I want to say the last 2 weeks of the onions really being in the ground. We had a lot of decent rain on and off. And I'm thinking that maybe the mold spores were in the soil, and then that all kind of happened with the greens being damaged. I really hope none of you guys have ever dealt with this. Honestly, I was going through stuff and I just was like, oh my gosh. I was cleaning everything as I go whenever I found one of these. That way I wasn't passing anything along to any of the other onions, but I'm pretty positive that is what happened. Again, we had some crazy wind that just kept causing damage to the onions this year, unlike any of the years prior. Like, I have wind. I live in Kansas. That's not uncommon. But more this year than we have had. And also just, again, more of a wet summer than we have had in previous years. So I think the combination of the two is what ended up causing this. I even have some that are like completely soft, to where you can just tell these have These have just not done well. Another thing I saw when I was Googling was your onions from the outside can look completely fine, which these looked so good. And I mean, if you could see that and you would think nothing wrong of it. And it wasn't until I looked inside that I saw some black, so I would peel it a little bit. And yeah, that is totally mold. If you've ever experienced this, please let me know your experience with it, because I'd be really curious to see what others have maybe done to help prevent it. Other than that, I'm not too sure. Again, I've never had this problem before. I'm definitely a little disappointed just because onions are probably one of the few crops I really, really care about. Onions and garlic I use in my kitchen almost daily, so I always really hope for a great harvest, which I had a fantastic harvest of garlic this year, so I honestly can't complain too much, and everything this year has gone really well. So I knew something before the end of the season really had to end up happening. I was hoping it wouldn't, but it always ends up being the case. You always have something in gardening that doesn't go according to plan. But I did have a handful here that had a few issues that where the skin didn't look like it cured fully correctly. So there are some, this is the box of onions I have as used first, just because I don't feel like these ones would store as well. I still have a good amount of onions, but this is definitely probably not going to last me into winter at all. And I was really hoping to at least get into January again this year. After working on this for the last 8 months, it's disappointing. I've been working on these since December of 2023. So I'm a little heartbroken at the moment, but let me give you guys a little bit better of a close-up on what this actually looks like here. You can see all of that black and it looks fuzzy. Like, that is definitely mold, that is not dirt. This one here was really soft, and you can see how that got all affected. This one here was really soft, and it got all affected. But I mean, I have over 20 here, but you can see, I noticed the specks on this one. The whole inside of this one was black, completely getting soft. And that one was just completely black. That's at least probably a fifth, maybe a sixth of my harvest that is completely gone. But I'm pretty sure all of the ones in here are okay. You can see like there's no trace of black right there at all. And these ones all look really good. So I don't think I'm too worried about these. From what I read too is if the onion itself isn't fully affected and it still feels hard, you can still use that onion, but some of these just do not look good to me, and I don't know if I would necessarily feel safe really using them. So I came inside, made a cup of coffee, and I was doing a bunch of different research to kind of see maybe what could have caused this. And upon further like investigation, I was like, I should probably go through these onions one more time and double check, since I was just kind of cleaning them up as I go. And even though some of them looked okay on like the surface, I peeled back like maybe a layer or two just to kind of check, and there was mold present. So I came out to reevaluate some of these other onions, and you can see some of these are just as bad. This one here is growing white mold as well, and it's soft. A lot of these like interior parts where you can see the black are also soft, so I feel like it got into like the core portion of the onions. These ones here, like this one's this one's definitely not as bad. That one might be salvageable, but honestly, majority of these are really, really bad. This is so sad. I honestly am just so shocked. Which is way worse than I started with. This box here is pretty much the onions I think that might be okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut these open. Like when I peeled these back to the same point that I was peeling back some of the others, these ones look completely fine, and one of my largest onions so far looks completely fine. But what I'm going to do is probably just go ahead and process these, because if there is any other mold present, I want to make sure that it's not in the house. Because it could also just spread to the garlic during storage as well. So this is one of those things where I probably wouldn't want to store these near the garlic anyway. So needless to say, I'm pretty heartbroken. I definitely cried a little bit over this, because that is a huge loss. I've never experienced a loss like this in gardening at all. And I did write some notes down because I was trying to figure out maybe more of what the cause could have happened. So here's my little notes. The fungus that causes black mold in onions is common in the soil and dead plant material, and affected bulbs usually occur through the wounds. Fungus might enter through those wounds. So like I mentioned, this can happen during the time they're growing, but it can also just be more present in storage and can also happen in storage. And I had a lot of breakage on the greens from all of the wind. And then another thing I read as well was this can also happen during extended periods of wet conditions in the last 4 weeks before harvest. And I kept having on and off rain during like the last 2 or 3 weeks before storage, and I was the one cutting back on water, and I still couldn't get the onions really dry before they fully flopped over. There was a handful of them that were completely fine, but this is something that can also transfer during storage through the air or moisture, things like that. Humidity during storage or heat during storage can also be another case. I did cure my onions the exact same way last year and had 0 problems with this. So I don't really feel like it was the curing process. It still could be part of the curing process. I don't know, but it enters through breaks in the skin, high humidity, anything over the temp of 85. So yeah, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm thinking I might have 20 okay onions here from what I can tell. This one was one of my biggest ones. I'm really hoping this one's still okay. But yeah, I'm gonna see how much I can get processed. I'm gonna cut these open, dice them, and I'm gonna put them into the freeze dryer. I'm at least hoping maybe I can get like a quart of onion powder. I'd still be happy with that. But yeah, this is definitely like the worst loss I have ever dealt with when it comes to gardening. And honestly, it's so heartbreaking and disappointing. I'm kind of at a loss for words right now. I will say what really stinks is I've been grabbing onions out of the garage for weeks now, and I haven't had a single issue. So I almost wonder if this was more of a curing thing, and maybe it was present in the foliage just with how the breakage did happen, and it just now really started to pop up. I did see you tend to see black mold in curing and storing conditions within like a 4 to 8 week period, and I'm right at 4 weeks. And this was something I didn't experience last week when pulling out the onions, which again is so heartbreaking because it's one of those things where I would have at least tried to maybe process more down. I don't know. Actually, before I start this, I did want to mention that I did use a fungicide for the very first time this year, because when all of that breakage started to happen, because we were having extreme wind where we were having like 50, 60 mile per hour gusts, and these tops just kept flopping over, and I kept having breakage in the greens, to where I was doing research then on fungal problems with onions, and I decided to go ahead and use an organic fungicide because I didn't want my whole onion harvest to be a loss. And again, I'm a loss for words just because it's still looking like I might just completely lose this whole harvest when I really thought this was my best onion year yet. 7 of them are okay and they're good. I was actually shocked that that many out of that batch still didn't, but all of the spores and stuff can pass through wind, and we had so many fans going on that I was really going into this thinking I'd have a total loss, but these ones looked amazing. I didn't see a single thing on them. A lot of those onions were pretty bad. I've kind of read, like, everything I was reading over the last few hours, like, state that if you have like maybe a speck or two that looks like a piece of dirt or something, rinse that off with cold water and you're good to go. But most advise against a decent amount of mold, and I would say that a lot of those had decent amount of mold. I mean, I showed you guys those ones from earlier. They were pretty much all like that. And yeah, it didn't surprise me, but I'm glad I at least have 7 here. So I'm gonna get these chopped up and into the freeze dryer, and I'm gonna make some onion powder. think this cantaloupe is ready. Oh, yes, it's definitely ready. I could tell that the color changed on it since this morning, and it just detached. I'll take a cantaloupe for my losses today. I definitely don't think I'm going to get all the planting I wanted to get done today done, but I am gonna at least get this broccoli in the ground, and then at that point, I need to fertilize the garden. So I think I'm gonna try to just get this broccoli planted and then fertilize the garden, and I'll try to get to the rest of this tomorrow morning. I am refilling the chickens' food, and then I'm gonna collect eggs, see how many we got for the day, and then fertilize the garden. We got 3 today. Oh, actually no, we got 4, because this morning one of the girls laid in their run. So 4 eggs. All right, so just gonna fertilize with the stuff I've been using all year. This is Dr. Neptune's fish and seaweed fertilizer. I've been doing an 1/8 of a cup per gallon. So since I'm gonna do about 4 gallons worth, I am going to do a whole 1/2 cup. Good morning, guys. So I'm getting started a little bit later because I had no idea we were supposed to get rain overnight into this morning, and I'm really glad I ended up getting that broccoli planted. I wish I would have gotten some of the other stuff direct sowed that I wanted, but the ground is nice and moist this morning, so that's going to be nice to go ahead and get a bunch of direct seeding done. I am still at just such a loss of words when it comes to the onions, to be completely honest. I have never experienced a loss like this in gardening ever to this scale, and yeah, I'm honestly just completely dumbfounded by this whole thing, just because I have been using these onions and I haven't experienced this at all over the last like 3-ish, probably 3.5 weeks was probably the last. I probably stopped grabbing onions a few days ago, and I still had those 7 that were fine. So either I got lucky and I kept grabbing onions that weren't affected, or it just happened. Because there was one thing I read where it stated that the mold can really pick up in storage around 4 to 8 weeks, and I was right at week 4. But I'm gonna try to just go ahead and move on with some more fall planting, even though I am a little upset about all of those onions. It is just one of those things that honestly truly sucks. I need to get some, oh, did I leave all that out? I think I left it out. I originally just decided to like leave out a lot of my stuff because I didn't think it was supposed to rain, and I don't think the seedlings got washed out or anything, but yeah, I should probably pick some of these tomatoes too, just in case. Yeah. So, all the seedlings look fine. We didn't get that much rain. North of us got a lot of rain. What's up, ladies? Moving on, let's get to it. I really need to deadhead those snapdragons at some point today. Okay, so the plan for over here is I'm gonna do some choy, some spinach, and also kohlrabi. Right here, I'm gonna throw those cabbages and also, what else did I, collards. And then beside the carrots, I'm gonna go ahead and plant out lettuce. I'm gonna go ahead and direct seed out this lettuce, and then I'm probably gonna start some inside as well. I'm almost thinking, for some reason this year, I just have a strong hunch we are going to have our first average frost earlier than previous years. The last like 2 or 3 years, I want to say we've been about a week late on our average. We've been right around like the 20 to like 25th, I want to say. And our average is right around the 15th. This year's been odd, and we're about to have yet another cool down over the weekend where I just have this feeling this might be the year we get a bit cooler faster. And if I don't get this lettuce in, I fear that I might miss the window on it. So I'm going to direct seed some lettuce, and I'm probably going to also start some lettuce downstairs under my lights as backup in case for some reason we stay hot and that lettuce were to bolt. I am putting it in one of my shadier locations, so I should be okay there. So I have a few different types of choy. I have a pak choy and a bok choy. I really like choy. It's pretty fast growing if you've never had it, and very easy to stir fry. It has a slight cabbagey flavor, but it's not super strong. So if you're not like huge into cabbage, highly suggest trying some choy. It's, again, just great in stir fry. I love throwing it with a bunch of things. So yeah, I'm going to plant out a few of those. I also have another area. I'm going to plant out some scallions, some beets, and probably some turnips as well. I'm really excited about the spinach variety I got. It's called Winter Giant spinach, and it's supposed to overwinter pretty well. I want to get a decent amount of spinach because last year I fell in love with freeze-dried spinach. It was so easy to toss into stuff, and it was so great. So I'm hoping I can at least get a good amount of spinach. I got pretty much none over the spring. It just kept getting attacked. By the way, do you guys see this sunflower? I don't even know if this angle really does it justice. It is so crooked. This was one of my volunteers and it is so crazy looking. If it was straight up, I want to say that's probably like a 15-foot sunflower. That is probably one of the biggest sunflowers I have ever grown. And I'm shocked it's just kind of hanging on because it's at one weird extreme angle right now. I typically like to take a yardstick and mark out where my rows are going to be. So I'm going to be planting this about 6 inches apart, and then with 10-inch row spacing. It says 6 to 10 inches, so I'm probably gonna actually go closer to 8 just because the bok choy you can harvest it as baby, or you can let it get a little bit more mature. Now spinach, you can plant pretty close together. So I'm going to be planting this out every like 2-3 inches with about 8, maybe 6-inch row spacing. So I'm just gonna even this out a little bit with my yardstick. And I'm not gonna do this whole half spinach either. I'm gonna save part of it to plant out some kohlrabi. Now, if you guys have never seen kohlrabi, this is actually a pretty cool one. It's very alien looking like. It has a slight cabbagey flavor as well. I'm gonna do 2 rows of this. Another reason why I'm using this soil amendment, like garden soil, is because I have no compost at the moment. In previous years, I would also just use the compost I made for the previous year or the following through the season. And we all know my compost saga. I ended up tearing down my compost area, and then summer got busy, and I have yet to really focus on that yet. So that is like something I really want to do over fall and winter to get something established, at least before next spring. Honestly, our weather over the next handful of days is going to be perfect to get all of this stuff planted and direct seeded, because we're supposed to have rain, it's supposed to be cloudy, and it's supposed to be cooler. So honestly, I can't complain too much about this week in August. Someone just laid an egg. If you didn't know, hens will sing a song when they lay an egg, and it sounds like that. The last place I'm gonna sow some stuff out this morning is right here. I'm gonna get these cosmos out, and right here I'm gonna put some green onions, some beets, and also turnips. My plan with the beets is to freeze dry those into a powder and throw into things, and then I'm gonna grow a lot more green onions to maybe replace some onion flavor in some of my cooking over the winter months now that I don't have all those onions. But I really wasn't a big fan of this variety of Cosmos. They were pretty, but they were very, very hard to keep up with. If you have a favorite variety of Cosmos, I've really liked this bright lights. You can tell by the foliage, they are definitely different, but I liked that variety a lot better than any other Cosmo I have grown in the past. Someone has now laid another egg. It's a loud backyard today. All right, that is all of the planting I'm gonna do for this morning. I'm gonna deadhead a few things and then I'm gonna go inside and see how far along the freeze dryer is. I'm pretty sure that's not gonna get done until this afternoon at some point. It is much later in the day. I've been sitting at my computer doing a bunch of computer work, but the freeze dryer just got done and everything is good to go. So I'm gonna bring up all of the trays. I'm gonna warm up the trays a little bit. They seem a little bit cold. So there's a warming tray function on the freeze dryer, and it's really handy because this gets so cold, and if you pull out the trays, if there's like a big fluctuation, you could have condensation of your trays, and that is not what you want. So I'm gonna let these just warm up a little bit. I'm gonna probably blend up 3 of the trays, see where I'm at with onion powder, and then at that point I might throw diced onions into bags and be able to freeze dry and be able to use that later for either powder or throw into like soups and stews and things like that. I have a quart and also a pint because I wasn't exactly sure how much powder I might actually make versus throw others into the Mylar bags. Because one thing I did last year is when I freeze dried a bunch of my onions, I actually powdered down a good amount, but then I also just kept a bunch of the chopped onions into Mylar bags, and I was able just to take what I need, blend up some more onion powder, or use it in soups and stews. So I like that versatility. Tap it down a bit. Very fluffy. Anytime I've tried to dehydrate onions or garlic, it just never turns out the way I want it to. It almost gives it more of a roasted flavor, and I've just never liked that. So if I would have used all of this for powder, it would have been one of those things where I probably would have gotten pretty close to a quart. Still definitely sad. I've never had that much of a fail when it comes to the garden, especially when I did everything for the most part the exact same with the onions as far as like harvesting and storage goes. So I'm getting oxygen absorbers thrown into this. I close up my Mylar bags. I like to partially close them and just take some of the air out myself. And I'm gonna seal these up. I did have someone ask me the question if sealing the Mylar bag was necessary, and I would say yes. Even though it has this zipper here and it's technically closed, I could see air still passing through that. I am going to date everything before I take it all downstairs, but I think this is where I'm going to end today's video. I just want to say thank you guys for being here over the last few days as I truly experienced my worst gardening fail yet to date. Sometimes gardening can just suck and be a complete blow, especially when you put 8 months of work into something and you think you're about to put away your best onion harvest to date, and then you are just dumbfounded. It was definitely goes up there on list of things I'm bitter about when it comes to gardening, but I've had a lot of really happy times and a lot of things that have gone really well for me this year. So I will take it, even though I'm very disappointed at my onions. But hopefully next week we end on a brighter note, and I will see you guys all then. Bye.